on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Vielleicht nur als 5%.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top story tonight on Gravitas is about a major incident. Russian fighter jets intercepted and challenged American bombers near the Baltic Sea. The timing and the nature of this episode, given the background, sending alarm bells ringing, raising a series of crucial questions. And on Gravitas tonight, we decode these developments and get you the bigger picture. Here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Donald Trump has declared a fentanyl war against China. What's brewing and how exactly has Beijing reacted? We tell you all that you need to know. Has the Chinese Communist Party turned into the Chinese Corruption Party? We tell you why that question is being asked. We also get to the extraordinary story of a man who sleeps with an alligator in his bed. We are not making that up. In fact, he keeps 400 exotic pets at his house in France. Imagine living with a python and alligators. All this and much more coming up. Our top story tonight on Gravitas is about explosive tensions between Russia and the US in the skies of Europe. On Monday, Russian fighter jets intercepted and challenged American bombers near the Baltic Sea. This could have exploded into something bigger, something far more dangerous. And you know what that would be? In one word, catastrophic. The ground below is already in battle mode, with the rapid Russian advance across the Ukraine front and Ukraine's response using the latest missiles rushed by America and Europe to Kyiv. To be told, na yaar. There is continuous escalation. No one knows where it will stop as the stakes keep escalating on both sides. Just for context here, the encounter in the skies took place near Kaliningrad. According to reports, two Russian Su-27 fighter jets intercepted two US B-52 Stratofortress bombers that were reportedly operating in collaboration with Finland during a routine training mission. The American aircraft reportedly did not deviate from the planned flight paths. However, the timing and location of the incident raises critical questions. Was this merely just a standard military exercise or a calculated provocation? After all, this aerial encounter comes against the backdrop of a sharp escalation in hostilities in the region. Just last week, Russia launched a hypersonic missile at Ukraine, retaliating against Kyiv's use of advanced Western-supplied weapons to strike Russian territory. Such developments making these aerial intercepts more than just symbolic. They basically represent the continuing spiral of actions and counteractions that could escalate into something far more dangerous. Meanwhile, the tension in the skies mirrors the grinding conflict on the ground in Ukraine. In fact, as per reports, Russian forces have made significant battlefield advances, capturing over 90 square miles of territory in the Donetsk region. 90 square miles. That is about half the size of London, by the way. This is reportedly the Russian army's biggest monthly advance in Ukraine since the start of the war in 2022. As per reports, the town of Kurakhove, a key point on the front line, is at the risk of falling after months of Russian bombardment. Ukrainian defenders are reportedly stretched thin and grappling with supply shortages, hence struggling to hold the line. Kurakhove's potential loss could reportedly provide Russia with a strategic gateway towards larger objectives, including Zaporizhia, located nearly 140 kilometers away, and also giving impetus towards taking control of Pokrovsk, a vital logistics hub located 30 kilometers to the north. Reports say control of these areas would strengthen Russia's logistics network, allowing its forces to press deeper into Ukrainian-held territories. Meanwhile, there is further escalation, of course, in the war. As per reports, Ukraine has fired 13 ATACMS missiles in a span of just 3 days towards Russia. These strikes by supersonic tactical ballistic missiles reportedly targeted key military installations, including air bases and defense systems in Russia's Kursk region. Moscow has confirmed casualties and damage from these attacks, but has not divulged a lot of details. And in response, Russia has vowed retaliation. Remember, just last week, Russia showcased its hypersonic missile capabilities when it launched the Oreshnik, a new intermediate-range ballistic missile, at the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. These developments raise a key question. How long before these tit-for-tat escalations involve direct confrontations between the NATO forces and Russia? You see, because the possibility of miscalculation looms large, especially with both sides operating in increasingly close proximity. Meanwhile, concerns about drone activity adding another layer of complexity to all of this. US Air Force bases in the UK have reported mysterious drone sightings, prompting the deployment of British troops to bolster security. As per reports, 60 British troops have been deployed to US Air Force bases across the UK to protect them from drone attacks. Drones were in fact spotted near 3 military bases in Britain on Monday and early Tuesday. We told you about this. While the source of these drones remains unconfirmed, their coordinated movements reportedly suggesting there could be a lot more at play. Could this be another front in the broader conflict where unconventional tactics blur the lines between surveillance and provocation? Such incidents coincide with rising Russian anger over Western military support for Ukraine. Whether these drones are linked to Russia or opportunist third parties, they do exemplify the evolving nature of modern warfare, where traditional battle lines are supplemented by emerging threats from the skies. Russia's use of nearly 200 drones in a single night to attack Ukrainian infrastructure on Monday further demonstrated how the conflict is escalating on multiple fronts. Critical infrastructure in Ukraine, including power grids, has been severely damaged, leaving civilians to endure cold and darkness as winter sets in. These attacks highlight the human cost of a conflict that shows no signs of abating. As NATO allies conduct joint exercises and Russia and Ukraine both ramp up their military activities, the question remains, where do things go from here? Because both sides seem locked in a dangerous cycle of provocation and retaliation. And the longer this conflict drags on, the harder it becomes to control. As Russian and NATO warplanes share increasingly contested airspace, this is a reminder of how quickly tensions can escalate. With every maneuver, every missile, and every strike, the line between posturing and peril grows thinner. US President-elect Donald Trump has declared a fentanyl war against China. He announced a big move on Monday, announcing that he will be imposing an additional 10% tariff on imports from China. Why? Well, he claims it's in response to Beijing's failure to control the trafficking of the chemical precursors used to make fentanyl. First, what is fentanyl? In case you're wondering, it's basically a deadly synthetic opioid. Trump claimed that he has had talks with China about fentanyl being sent into the US, but to no avail. Not just that, he said that he was promised harsh penalties for drug dealers, but claims that Beijing never followed through. So what does China have to say about Trump's move? No surprises here, China disputes this narrative. In fact, on Tuesday, a spokesperson for China's foreign ministry fired back, saying China is one of the toughest nations on counteraction politics, both in policy and practice. The Chinese government says that the fentanyl issue is largely a US problem, yet they have extended help in addressing it. But is this truly about the drugs, or is this yet another example of Trump using tariffs like a weapon? After all, he's often said his favorite word is tariff, calling it the most beautiful word in the dictionary. On Monday, Trump took things further, unveiling 25% tariffs on goods from China, Mexico, and Canada. And while the 10% China tariff is lower than the 60% that he threatened during his campaign, the rationale behind it has raised eyebrows. He claims it's tied to China's role in America's opioid epidemic, particularly fentanyl. But what's the truth? What's really going on here? Let's start off with the basics. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid far stronger than heroin. It has legitimate medical uses for pain relief. However, it's also at the center of America's opioid crisis. As per reports, last year alone, nearly 75,000 Americans died of fentanyl overdose. The White House calls fentanyl a scourge without boundaries. Experts have described America's fentanyl crisis as the most lethal drug epidemic in human history. So how exactly does China fit into the fentanyl crisis in America? According to reports, fentanyl started arriving in the US from China about 10 years ago. In 2020, the US Drug Enforcement Administration called China the primary source of fentanyl and fentanyl-related substances trafficked through international mail. Authorities in both the US and China have cracked down on traffickers and criminal gangs. However, as the crackdowns intensified, traffickers changed tactics. Much of that flow has been rerouted through cartels in Mexico. Now, instead of sending fentanyl directly to the US, chemicals are shipped to Mexico, where they are in turn processed into fentanyl and then smuggled across the border, which brings us to the crucial question: what has China done to address this? Well, it hasn't been all inaction. In 2019, China took a major step, scheduling all forms of fentanyl as controlled substances. That's something even the US has not done permanently, but cooperation faltered in 2022. This was basically after the then Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, visited Taiwan, causing quite a stir in China. And in retaliation, Beijing cut off various ties with the US, including joint efforts. Last year, however, talks resumed during a Biden-Xi meeting in San Francisco. And since then, China has reportedly taken steps to control fentanyl precursors and worked on anti-money laundering operations targeting criminal networks. Yet, China insists the fentanyl problem is fundamentally American. Last month, Mao Ning, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson, said that the root cause of overdoses lies within the US itself, saying that it's up to the US government to implement effective measures to curb the crisis. So here's the real question. Tariff might be a beautiful word, according to Trump, but can it really curb a public health crisis? Are tariffs really the answer? Clearly, there's more to all of this than meets the eye. By Wednesday morning, Chinese state media warned Trump that his pledge to slap additional tariffs on Chinese goods over fentanyl flows could drag the world's top two economies into a mutually destructive tariff war. Remember, during Trump's first term, a bitter trade war with China disrupted global supply chains, drove up inflation, and basically sent borrowing costs soaring. And now, with Trump's rhetoric heating up once again, Beijing is responding sharply. Editorials from Chinese state media outlets like China Daily and the Global Times issued warnings to the US on Tuesday. What was their message? The next president must not scapegoat China for America's fentanyl crisis. In fact, one Chinese daily editorial even accused Trump of making unfounded claims to justify his tariff threats. But as China says, could a new wave of tariffs destabilize the global economy? Economists are already sounding the alarm. Here's what's at stake. China's $19 trillion economy is already feeling the pressure. Economists have started cutting their growth projections for 2025 and 2026, warning of far-reaching consequences if Trump pushes through his tariff promises. China appears ready for a fight, but is also sending signals of resilience. Some Chinese analysts have dismissed Trump's justification for tariffs as baseless. Trump's past tariffs, which ranged from 7.5% to 25% on Chinese goods, targeted $370 billion worth of imports. And now he's threatening rates as high as 60%. And this escalation could upend China's industrial sector, which exports over $400 billion in goods annually to the US. Adding fuel to the fire is Trump's choice of Jamieson Greer as the US trade representative. A veteran of the first trade war, Greer is basically seen as a hardliner, ready to push an aggressive trade agenda. As for what all of this would mean for the global economy, economists are divided. While some argue that Beijing may need to inject stimulus to sustain growth, others point to the unpredictability of Trump's approach. So the question still remains, is this the dawn of a trade war 2.0? And if it is, how much pain are both countries and the world prepared to endure? Shifting focus now to West Asia, a long-awaited truce has been declared. Israel and Hezbollah have agreed to a highly anticipated ceasefire in the 14-month-old war in Lebanon. Confirming the news, US President Joe Biden has called it a historic moment. But will the deal hold is the immediate question. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu endorsed the ceasefire after his cabinet approved it, despite fierce opposition from far-right allies. In a televised address, Netanyahu vowed to enforce the agreement but warned that Israel retains complete military freedom of action. A ceasefire, yes, but peace? That's the big question. And what about the other side? Under the terms of the ceasefire, you see, over 60 days, Hezbollah will remove its fighters and weapons from the area between the Blue Line, that's the unofficial border between Lebanon and Israel, and the Litani River, about 30 kilometers to the north. Hezbollah fighters will be replaced by Lebanese army forces in that area, who will ensure that infrastructure or weaponry is removed and that it cannot be rebuilt. And over the same 60 days, Israel will also gradually withdraw its remaining forces and civilians. And this would basically enable civilians on both sides of the border to return to their homes. Importantly, for Israel, Hezbollah dropped its demand that a ceasefire in Lebanon was contingent on ending the fighting in Gaza. Very crucial. In fact, these are visuals of Lebanese nationals heading south to their homes as the Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire kicked in. This despite Israel asking Lebanese nationals to wait till the IDF withdraws fully. President Biden saying that this deal is designed to end hostilities permanently. He said, and I'm quoting now, "Peace is possible." The US, along with France and other countries, will be monitoring the agreement. Biden clarified, in fact, that there will be no American boots on the ground in Lebanon, but support, both logistically and politically, will be unwavering. French President Emmanuel Macron also applauded the deal. He called it a turning point for Lebanon, but he also warned that the shadow of war still looms over Gaza. The UK also echoing similar concerns. After all, the Israel-Hezbollah conflict was triggered by the war in Gaza, remember. And so even as this deal was finalized, even celebrated, Israeli airstrikes killed 18 people in Beirut. Critics like far-right Israeli Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir have slammed the agreement, calling it a mistake. And what about the future? What's next in the conflict in West Asia? What lies ahead for Gaza? The numerous attempts at diplomacy to strike a truce in Gaza over the past year have come to nothing essentially, except for a temporary ceasefire a year ago. Israel's war on the Palestinian enclave has so far killed about 44,300 people, displaced the majority of the population and caused widespread humanitarian crisis. On Wednesday, the Israeli Defense Forces continued the intense airstrike and ground campaigns in Gaza, particularly in the north of the devastated Palestinian territory. So dire is the situation that Gaza's civil defense vehicles, which serve emergency functions like search and rescue operations, are no longer operating in Gaza City. Why is that? Because the agency is out of fuel. And as a result, Gaza's civil defense stopped operating in northern Gaza on October 23rd. Still, some Palestinians are clinging on to the hope that a ceasefire in Lebanon could pave the way for a similar agreement in Gaza. And with just weeks left, as far as Biden's administration is concerned, will his successor, Donald Trump, honor the deal? Trump's team has reportedly been briefed. He has signaled support. But how stable is that support in a region so volatile? Netanyahu says the truce gives Israel time to focus on threats like Iran, replenish its arms, and give rest to its soldiers. But is this truly the end? And again, what happens to Gaza? Many experts say that by securing a deal in Lebanon, Israel can now focus on Gaza, treating it as a defeated and easily controllable entity in a way. The ceasefire agreement in Lebanon, which prevented further bloodshed and violence, was seen as wise by many. Remember, Hamas has expressed its willingness to cooperate with the Gaza ceasefire, but its demand includes full withdrawal of Israeli forces, return of displaced people, as well as a prisoner swap. That has been the bone of contention, remember, stopping progress in the Gaza ceasefire talks. Some in Gaza feel abandoned and fear that Israel may escalate its military operations, especially given Netanyahu's rhetoric about extending control over Gaza. Now, analysts warn that without significant international pressure, the war could drag on for months. And as Israel continues its strikes on Gaza, some worry that the ceasefire in Lebanon will isolate Gaza and give Israel more leeway to execute its plans. Will the ceasefire in Lebanon help bring peace to Gaza? Or is the situation about to escalate further? Bangladesh is on the boil amid the unrest over the arrest of Chinmoy Krishnadas. A Hindu temple was allegedly targeted by a mob in the port city of Chittagong. The arrest of Chinmoy Krishnadas has triggered protests across the country. The Hindu community has been calling for his release and justice for Hindus who have faced persecution since the ouster of the former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Protesters have been clashing with security forces in Chittagong. The violent clashes led to one death, leaving several injured. And amid the raging protest, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, or ISKCON, Bangladesh, has issued a statement denouncing the arrest of the priest. It has called upon the government authorities to promote peaceful coexistence of the Hindus. In its statement, ISKCON has said, and I'm quoting, Chinmoy Krishnadas and the community deserve justice as citizens of this country, and we stress that any form of discrimination against them must not be tolerated, quote unquote. It further goes on to say that it is essential to uphold free speech. A petition has been filed in Bangladesh High Court seeking a ban on ISKCON. And in response to the plea, the Bangladesh government has called ISKCON, quote unquote, a religious fundamentalist organization. ISKCON is commonly referred to as the Hare Krishna movement. Founded in New York City in 1966. ISKCON's main headquarters in Mayapur in the Indian state of West Bengal. It claims approximately 1 million members globally. It has over 650 temples and centers of Vedic value education across 6 continents of the world. Bangladesh has at least 17 ISKCON temples. ISKCON's food relief program, Hare Krishna Food for Life, claims to have provided 150 million free meals in 14 months as part of its COVID relief work in India in 2021. And the arrest of the Hindu leader has ended up increasing tensions between India and Bangladesh. India has issued a statement expressing deep concern over the arrest. It has asked Bangladesh to ensure the safety of Hindus and all minorities.
The targeting of Hindus and arrest of religious leaders show that fundamentalists are dominating the Bangladesh interim government, like in the case of Pakistan. The caretaker Prime Minister of Bangladesh is in the clutches of fundamentalists. The way Hindus are being attacked is against humanity. United Nations should intervene in this matter.
And Bangladesh has responded, expressing what it called its utter dismay at the arrest being misconstrued by certain quarters, quote unquote. Chinmoy Krishnadas, who was earlier associated with ISKCON, was arrested in at Dhaka International Airport on Monday in connection with a sedition case registered last month. Das has been accused in the past of disrespecting the Bangladesh flag during a rally in Chittagong city in October. The 39-year-old has emerged as the biggest Hindu leader in Bangladesh, 4 months after the fall of Sheikh Hasina's regime. Meanwhile, the Mexican president has rebuked President-elect Donald Trump's plan to impose a 25% tariff on Mexican imports, like we just mentioned. Our next report, getting you voices from both sides of the border on the reasons for Trump's stance and the impact that it could have.
The diplomatic tug-of-war erupts as Mexico prepares to unleash economic retaliation against Donald Trump's trade assault. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum stands defiant, promising a swift and calculated response to Trump's proposed 25% import tariffs.
We are not only looking to the north, but also to the south and the European continent, but particularly to the south with our brother countries. So that's why I tell you that there is a Mexico plan.
Trump's proposed tariffs aimed at curbing migration and drug trafficking represent a dangerous escalation that could unravel the delicate economic fabric binding the two nations. Mexico, the United States' top trading partner, generating 15.8% of total bilateral trade, faces a potential economic problem that threatens to disrupt decades of integrated economic cooperation.
Now that President Trump is coming into power, things are going to change a little bit. But we hope everything stays the same.
We are very worried because the border cities have been losing a lot of competitiveness. The rhetoric by United States President-elect Donald Trump demonizes the US-Mexican border. We think there should be a joint effort. There should be more work between both governments, the United States and Mexico.
Trump's stance threatens to violate the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, a trade deal negotiated during his previous administration. With such steep tariffs, US companies importing Mexican goods would undoubtedly have to raise their prices. That could end up costing Trump politically, given the role consumer prices played in his election win.
So we have this market, and then we have 2 restaurants as well, but we import a lot of our goods. I would say about 40% of what we sell and what we use in our dishes. So that tariff would really hurt us.
Things are already expensive in Los Angeles, and they keep going up. But if the store owner is going to pay the tariffs and things will stay the same, it won't impact me.
Trump continues to double down on hardline immigration policies. He promises to declare a national emergency on border security and empower a new border czar to carry out mass deportations. Mexico, however, stands firm, preparing its own economic countermeasures. With trade, migration and ties hanging in the balance, the coming weeks may define relations between the US and its southern neighbor for years to come. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
There is a storm brewing in China. The People's Liberation Army is now plagued by corruption scandals, and at the heart of this lies a major question. Has the Chinese Communist Party turned into the Chinese Corruption Party? According to the UK's Financial Times, Admiral Dong Jun, China's defense minister, is under investigation for corruption. This probe is part of a larger campaign targeting high-ranking officials in the PLA. Dong was appointed in December 2023 after his predecessor was dismissed for corruption, and now also finds himself entangled in allegations of corruption. Shockingly enough, he is the 3rd consecutive Chinese defense minister to face such charges, 3 in a row quite a hat-trick. Dong replaced General Li Shangfu, who lasted just 7 months before being ousted under a cloud of suspicion. And before Li, Wei Fenghe, remember, also fell to corruption allegations shortly after retiring. What's the common thread? All of these men were handpicked by President Xi Jinping, who was reportedly claiming to be waging a war against corruption within the PLA. So much for that. But with each new appointee falling under scrutiny, the question arises, is Xi Jinping losing his grip on the very system he vowed to reform and protect? As per reports, this wave of investigations is shaking the leader's confidence in his military leadership. Curiously, no specifics about Dong's alleged misconduct have emerged as of now, but his predicament adds to the growing list of top officials ousted under Xi Jinping's so-called anti-corruption drive. And this revelation comes barely a week after Dong attended a defense meeting in Laos. Meanwhile, China's foreign ministry dismissed and brushed aside the allegations without giving any clarity as such. However, such denials come amid a series of corruption cases in the country. Earlier this year itself, 2 high-ranking PLA rocket force officers overseeing China's nuclear weapons were removed under similar circumstances. Analysts saying that Dong's appointment, like his predecessors, was supposedly the result of thorough vetting. Yet, corruption continues to remain a prominent issue, of course. This turmoil also has implications far beyond China's borders. As per reports, US military officials have said that Xi Jinping's distrust of his own leaders could stall China's military ambitions, because a crumbling chain of command might prove to be the Achilles heel in China's military strategy. It's also embarrassing. And it's important to note that in China, the role of the defense minister reportedly is not as powerful as in other countries. Instead, it's largely ceremonial, acting as the international face of the PLA in a way. So what does all of this mean for China's global image? The Communist Party once boasted about its discipline, about its unity. With its leadership now embroiled in scandal after scandal, promises of a corruption-free PLA look increasingly hollow. Is the Communist Party losing control, or has corruption become its defining feature? Shifting focus for now, the Indian Met Department has issued a heavy rainfall warning for parts of Tamil Nadu in India, saying the depression over the southwest Bay of Bengal has intensified into a deep depression and is likely to develop into a cyclonic storm. As per the IMD, the depression is currently skirting the east coast of Sri Lanka and could likely make landfall between Chennai and Puducherry. And if the depression becomes a cyclone, it will be called Fengal. It would basically follow Cyclone Dana, which was the third cyclonic storm and second severe cyclonic storm of the 2024 North Indian Ocean cyclone season. And as a deep depression forms over the state, parts of Tamil Nadu have already started to witness rainfall. A red alert has been issued for extremely heavy rain in areas like Kudalur, while Chennai remains under a yellow alert due to the anticipated severe weather conditions. Authorities have declared holidays for schools in several districts, including the capital, Chennai. Rainfall also being reported in Chennai's suburban areas. A total of 17 teams have been deployed. The state has also prepared over 1,600 relief centers, though none have been used so far. Equipment like generators, motor pumps, boats and other machinery also on standby. And first responders and volunteers are ready for deployment if required. Depression has also triggered heavy rains in parts of Sri Lanka. The country's disaster management center has said that one woman was killed due to mudslide and total 8 people went missing after flash floods hit eastern Sri Lanka. In a groundbreaking achievement, the Indian Army has successfully established optical fiber connectivity in the icy altitudes of Siachen Glacier and Daulat Beg Oldi, ensuring seamless communication in some of the world's harshest terrains. Siachen, famously known as the highest and coldest battlefield, lies at a staggering altitude of 18,000 to 20,000 feet in the Karakoram range. And here, soldiers endure relentless challenges like frostbite, high-speed winds, treacherous snowfields. Amid these brutal conditions, the Indian Army's Fire and Fury Corps stepped up to accomplish a feat few thought possible. Braving extreme cold, steep slopes and dangerous crevices, Army signalers laid optical fiber cables across this unforgiving terrain. A video released by the Fire and Fury Corps on the Platform X captured soldiers battling waist-deep snow, navigating slippery ridges and maneuvering through low visibility, yet their precision and grit shining through as they completed the mission successfully. For the first time, uninterrupted communication now links these remote, strategically critical regions. The Fire and Fury Corps on social media saying that their efforts have brought modern connectivity to these isolated posts, a significant leap forward for operational efficiency. Navigating treacherous crevices to enduring bone-chilling winds, they have left no stone unturned to ensure seamless connectivity in formidable conditions. Daulat Beg Oldi, another key military base in northern Ladakh, holds immense strategic significance. The base allows for the rapid deployment of troops and supplies in Ladakh. It also serves as a key logistical hub for operations in the Siachen Glacier area. This optical fiber project not only boosts communication, but also underscores the Indian Army's resilience and determination to overcome any obstacle. And China is stepping up efforts to mediate peace in northern Myanmar, where ethnic armed groups and the junta have been locked in prolonged conflict. Beijing's push for dialogue coming as the Tang National Liberation Army announces its willingness to engage in peace talks. China, which has long viewed Myanmar's military as a stabilizing force, has been pressuring the TLNA to end hostilities. Beijing's intervention including closing border crossings and cutting off essential supplies to the territories controlled by the armed group.
We sincerely hope that the situation in Myanmar will return to stability as soon as possible and have been urging all parties to the conflict in northern Myanmar to cease fire and stop fighting, solve problems through dialogue and consultation, and jointly promote the easing of the situation in northern Myanmar.
The announcement by the TLNA, a key member of the rebel group, the Brotherhood Alliance, comes after a year of intense fighting along the Myanmar-China border. The group, which captured several towns in the northern Shan state and Mandalay region, now saying that the civilians have borne the brunt of the conflict, with clashes and airstrikes causing widespread suffering. This renewed push for peace follows Min Aung Hlaing's recent visit to China, where the junta leader received assurance about Beijing's support. And analysts believe the TLNA's decision to seek dialogue reflects mounting pressure from China rather than a shift in its stance. However, the TLNA has made it clear that it will not cede territory, a stance likely to complicate negotiations. The group has maintained that their main goal is the establishment of a Tang state within a federal union that guarantees self-determination for all ethnic groups of Myanmar. And staying with developments coming in from India, this story is about a battle of the royals, not an actual one, but a row over a family property. On Monday, things heated up between two factions of the erstwhile royal family of Mewar, resulting in a clash in Rajasthan's Udaipur, in which several people were injured. The clash broke out soon after the MLA of BJP, Vishwaraj Singh Mewar, was coronated as the 77th Maharana of Mewar at the Chittorgarh fort. Let's get you the latest. Vishwaraj Singh Mewar's coronation came after his father, Mahendra Singh, passed away early this month. On Monday, hours after being anointed the titular head of the erstwhile royal family of Mewar, Vishwaraj Singh Mewar and his supporters were reportedly denied entry into Udaipur's city palace. Reports saying Singh stood with his supporters at the spot for 5 long hours. And this in turn resulted in a standoff with his cousin, Dr. Lakshay Raj Singh Mewar, right at the gates of the palace. But it did not stop there. In fact, as the day progressed, tensions flared up. At night, supporters of the MLA and those from inside the palace reportedly engaged in pelting stones at each other. What's more, a mob even attempted to storm the palace gates. A total of 3 people were injured in the incident. But how exactly did all of this start? You see, this is part of what is now being called a long-standing feud between Vishwaraj Singh Mewar's father, Mahendra Singh, and his uncle, Arvind Singh, both descendants of Maharana Pratap. Meanwhile, Arvind Singh, who is the younger brother of the late Mahendra Singh, happens to control the city palace through a trust. Now, the trust had reportedly issued legal notices in local dailies warning against unauthorized entry into the palace. Reports suggesting the gates of the palace were kept shut when Mewar went to visit for a post-coronation ritual. Not just that, heavy security was reportedly in place outside the palace to deny him entry. And what's more, the district administration tried to mediate a settlement as well, ensure that he could enter the palace in a way, but they were not quite successful. Even as police personnel were on high alert, the situation seemed to have spiraled out of control. The Chittorgarh Fort, by the way, is one of the largest forts in India. It's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And just for context, to give you a sense of the scale of the coronation ceremony, from all over India, members of erstwhile royal families attended it, marked by a 21-gun salute. You see, to this day, stories of the Mewar dynasty's bravery and exploits in the battlefield are recollected with praise and admiration. With the latest developments, what lies ahead? We will be keeping a close eye on how things unfold. What's your bedtime ritual usually? Reading, watching a movie, meditating, journaling? What if it involves an alligator? Rather, sleeping with an alligator in your bed. Does that sound like a nightmare? Well, a Frenchman is doing exactly that. You might have often been asked whether you're a dog person or a cat person, but are you an alligator person? This man definitely is. The 72-year-old has alligators living with him. Not just that, he shares his home with a venomous Gabonese viper, a spitting cobra, a python. In fact, he keeps 400 exotic pets at his house in France. Sounds like a scary party, perhaps? Not for him. This is his life, and it's an extraordinary story. Naturally, videos of everyday tales of his life, full of these animals and his exotic pets, have made him quite a social media sensation. They also promote his charity, which basically aims to educate people about the animals he's so passionate about. So, what's his story? He lived in Africa for 20 years, working as a hunting guide, and he said he would often catch crocodiles there to keep them away from villages. Back in France, he became a specialist on reptiles and amphibians. And what's the story behind all those animals and pets living with him? Most of the animals were bought or given to him by people who could no longer care for them. In fact, France's customs department has also sometimes turned to him. What a noble cause, right? Also, how daring. But there are challenges along the way, of course. Money has been an issue. Financing his passion has become a problem since the pandemic. His association could no longer organize fundraising open days to show off the animals to the public. Now his social media videos are a crucial way to get the conservation message across. He also does this in interesting ways. He chooses a different animal for each video, mixing education and humor to demystify the legends and preconceptions about wild animals. In fact, he's already training the volunteers about looking after the animals and wants to set up a specialized refuge for reptiles far from the suburbs, where there would be less need for cages and pens. And with his massive internet following, he has already raised funds, about 15,000 euros for the center. On to some news from Hong Kong now. In a win, a massive win for the LGBTQ plus community, Hong Kong's top court has made a landmark ruling. The top court has upheld the rights of same-sex married couples to subsidized housing benefits as well as equal inheritance. This decision is a major breakthrough when it comes to the rights of the community. Let's break it down for you. On Tuesday, Hong Kong's top court upheld 3 earlier rulings that favored granting housing and inheritance rights to same-sex couples. As per reports, Court of Final Appeal's unanimous decision dismissed the government's appeals in gay rights housing case. Meanwhile, Chief Justice Andrew Chung stated that excluding same-sex couples from public rental flats and subsidized flats under the home ownership scheme was unjustifiable. Why is this important? This has put an end to years-long legal battles over the differential treatment faced by same-sex couples married overseas under Hong Kong's housing authority policies. You see, the unanimous decisions are expected to have a far-reaching impact on the lives of same-sex couples who traditionally have had lesser rights. And not just housing, the court also ended 2 inheritance laws, with the judges calling the disputed provisions as discriminatory and unconstitutional. Nick Infinger, who first launched a judicial review against the Housing Authority in 2018, told the press that Tuesday's rulings acknowledged same-sex couples can love each other and deserve to live together.
I think the most important this is not only fighting for me and for my partner, but this is fighting for all the people, all the same-sex couples in Hong Kong.
Remember, Hong Kong does not recognize same-sex marriage by itself, prompting some couples to marry elsewhere. Currently, it only recognizes same-sex marriage for certain select purposes like taxation, civil service benefits, dependent visas. In fact, many of the concessions were won through legal challenges. In September 2023, the top court ruled that the government should provide a proper framework for recognizing same-sex partnerships. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
WION brings you a special business talk show where we bring forth the stories of business leaders.
From breakthrough technologies to visionary leadership. We will unlock the trends, the tactics, and dive into the minds of the industry's most influential leaders.
WION brings you this special series to uncover what drives them in a candid talk show, WION Business Masters.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the US.
And I will be here at the WION headquarters, getting you all the action from the universe of sport. All that you need to know about your favorite teams and players, right here.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Vielleicht nur als Imposant.
Well, thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look at what is making headlines at this hour. The State of Israel has issued a warning to Hezbollah. It has said that it will respond very forcefully if Hezbollah violates the ceasefire agreement that has been floated and brought into existence by the Americans. France has said that it intends to continue to work closely in collaboration with the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu